Facilities. It's a work session for Guam Waterworks Authority. For the record,
Have lapsed from the date of the filing with the Legislative Secretary. The funding source, GPA and GWA, are responsible for the funding availability of the position and are in compliance with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations regarding the creation, filling of the position, and retention of positions in the certified technical and professional positions. The funding of this position shall be from the revenues of both GPA and GWA and shall have no financial impact on the government of Guam's general fund.
so that's where we are. We had, I figured that if we adopt this on the 29th, by the time we inaugurate our newly elected again, and we start January, that's when we'll start advertising and try and fill the position.
After the new board
After the
comes
new
in.
board. And the new old board.
The new old commissioner.
After we get back in January. How's that?
The new old commissioner,
Yeah.
commissioner.
Okay, so that's the thought process. Now, one thing I want to point out is that really the board can make any decision it wants on salary. So, there was some talk, this is 2 agencies now instead of 1. There's 1. So that's stuff that we can think about. We'll talk about it on the 29th, okay? Just to give you a heads up.
Sounds good, sounds good. At least you provided the range. I think we're trying to, most of our employees, correct me if I'm wrong, are approaching or at the 25th percentile?
No, they're still at the 20th.
We're the 20th.
We're stuck at the
Both
20th.
GW and GB?
Yes.
Okay. So that's why you showed us 20th to 50th.
Yeah, because we're, we've told both agencies, you and I both have told them that, we're trying to move as much as we can,
Best we can.
based on money availability. So I think when we originally started the whole process, and I looked at the resolution, and the intent was to get to the 50th percentile within a short period of time. It's been over 20 years.
We're moving on.
So what can we do?
Yep. Very good.
Anyway, so that's where we're at on that one. Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much, Tina.
Perfect.
And she worked on this with John Ray, who's here.
Everybody's good?
Yeah, everybody's good. So there's a joint project. Very good. Okay?
Miguel can't apply for the job.
Huh?
Well, only Miguel can't apply for the job.
Yes, only Miguel.
I don't think it's.
Because he
I think his
can't.
shorthand skills is
Well, he can't afford to cut in pay.
cutting stress too.
Yeah. Okay. So Miguel, what's up next? Thank you very much. Tina. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chair, is Resolution 05 FY 2023, and this is seeking approval for a design services contract for the Atacao Water and Sewer Infrastructure Project. As the board may recall, we were asked by the administration to provide potential infrastructure projects that could utilize ARPA funding that would specifically assist underserved communities, and which were also focused on health and public health issues. And so one of the projects that was submitted and which the administration decided to provide some funding for was taking care of water and sewer infrastructure in the Atacao area. GWA has 7 production wells in that area, and 6 of which are seeing increasing nitrate concentrations in the water that is produced. Although they are still below the safe drinking water standards for these levels for nitrates, they are exhibiting a trend of increasing nitrate levels, which concerns us. And the benefit of conducting the sewer infrastructure upgrades here would take the customers in that area that are water customers in that area that are on septic tanks and cesspools and connect them to the public sewer system, and thereby reduce any nitrates that are entering the subsurface and the aquifer through those types of systems. So we will also be increasing the water infrastructure. Right now there are undersized water mains in that area, 2-inch water mains that we will be upsizing to 6 and 8-inch diameter water mains to serve that area, which would also allow for increased service capacity in the future. So the engineering department had put out a procurement for the design and the contract has been negotiated, the most qualified offer has been selected. And so we are seeking approval of the design contract. Currently, that scope of work has been negotiated with a fee of $1.164 million. We seek CCU's approval to award that with a 10% contingency of $116,000 for a total authorized funding amount of $1.28 million. The administration has provided $8.637 million in grant funding for this, which will more than cover the design cost. And we are currently looking for additional funding sources for the construction once the construction cost estimates are known based on the design.
Okay.
So we are currently seeking approval for that. We anticipate that the design will be done in September of the coming year, and construction should be completed around December of 2024 if everything goes well. There were 20 firms who downloaded the request for proposals, 5 submitted, and Duenas Camacho and Associates was recommended for the award and negotiated a fair and reasonable contract with the engineering team.
Fine. Good. You know, one of the things we've known forever, you were here first, and then we need to start replacing lines. That addresses the non-revenue water. We need to start putting in sewer systems to protect the aquifer. And it all takes money. So now we have a little bit of money, you know, so we'll see.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of a long road and many monies.
As I was listening to Miguel present, I was saying, I've heard about Atacao water and wastewater since 2003. You know, it's just an area that we know has always been challenged. And I've seen over the years, you know, some water upgrades, but this really is tackling 2 headaches, as you said. It's one, we're always going to be concerned about nitrates and the aquifer.
Oh, yes.
Right? Giving people the ability to connect to sewer lines, and that also opens up development in that area too, right? And so it's a big move, and great to have the governor throw in some money. That's also very helpful to our ratepayers, right? That she's having our favorite federal taxpayers pay for this project to help out Atacao. So yeah, no, it's very good. Long time coming, but this is the old, you know, how do you eat an elephant? Eat them a piece at a time.
Always said that, one bite at a time.
And sometimes it takes, you know, we bit off a bunch in 3, 4, 5, and now we're in 2023, and this won't be done till 2024. So we need continued patience of our ratepayers, but we have a plan, and we're on the design. We're now ready to implement the plan, design, and then get a contractor and get it done. So, you know, very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Is there no further questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Slam dunk.
We can move to the next resolution, which is 06 FY 2023. This is another distribution system project. We're seeking an increase in funding for the existing contract for Tai Road, Toto Cañada Loop Road, and Blah Street Water Line. As you know, the project has always been deemed an urgent project because of the frequent breaks along these water lines. So we're nearing the end of the project. However, we do have an additional change order that will need to be completed, and it involves some additional equipment that needs to be installed on Tawi Road. A change in some of the field conditions has resulted in some changes to the quantity and type of connections and fittings, and also the line length on Blah Street because of what was discovered during construction. And then the installation of a new gate valve and additional service meter connections on Toto Cañada Loop Road. And that was just, again, because site conditions varied from what was in the plans and specs. So the change order work is justified. In addition to that, there have been additional archaeological monitoring requirements that we must fulfill in order to comply with the SHPO's requirements, and that is also additional cost to the project. So in addition to that change order, the amounts that have already been estimated for that change order. There are still some uncertainties as we try to complete these projects on Tai Road. The mayor has raised issues about the road restoration there, which may require expanded road restoration over what was included in the original scope, traffic control on labor and other potential costs there. And then on Tocha Cañada, adjustment of some of the connections and new laterals, that there's still some uncertainty there. And on Tyson Road, again, potential archaeological monitoring. So there's a little bit of contingency, even though we're at the end of the project, and I know the board frowns on that. We still would like to include some of that. We don't want to get caught flat-footed at the end of the project and then have to come back to the board. So we are seeking an additional 178,000. That's the cost proposal from Giant Construction. With the current contract value at 2.5 million, the new contract value will be 2.7 if we execute that change order. So there's about 96,000 remaining in contingency funds. So we're seeking an additional 81,000 for the new change order, and then the contingency amount of 270,000. So the total requested additional funding is 352,000 right now, and it's anticipated that the funding source will be two CIP line items for rehabilitation and replacement, the 2-inch pipe replacement program, and PW 0903 for water distribution system pipe replacement and upgrades. So those are the funding sources. We do anticipate the work to be completed by the end of April in the coming year.
2020, okay. You know, these are the ones, I remember Mayor June Bloss coming in here about a couple of years ago yelling at us and saying, hey, my people in Totowa Cañada Road are dying, what's going on? And, you know, we had to explain to her we had to do a lot of design work and we had to do a lot of planning first. You had to make sure you knew where the easements were so that when we put the pipes down, we didn't have to move them or anything again. So, you know, I mean.
I think after that meeting, she did assist us with negotiating the easement with the private property owners who
which is good.
were involved in that potential conflict there.
You
And
want
that
the
helped
water,
us
you
get the
have to do
project
something
underway.
first. Yeah.
And you know, one of our challenges is the focus of the court order was on the wastewater side and safe drinking water, the tanks, right? And that sort of, when we were trying to figure out how to eat the elephant, we had to focus on those parts first.
That part of the elephant
And
first.
now we're trying to tackle the distribution systems on both water and wastewater.
Yeah.
We could have tried to do it faster, but then the rates we would have had to charge people over the last 20 years would have been significantly higher. So you're trying to eat that. So now you're trying to eat the elephant and pay for the elephant rather quickly. And when you, as we all know, when you overeat, not only is your bill high, but your indigestion isn't
Not
always
so good.
either. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're turning to the distribution systems of water and wastewater now because we've worked so hard on the other fundamental aspects like wastewater plants and water tanks. And so this is now we'll tackle this piece of the puzzle. And it's great to see that these projects are moving along and that we have the funding sources and again, between and I'll just throw it out because I think about it, you know, the chairman had a really good letter, Miguel and Chris, there's some public outreach and education that we're seeing in the bills, so I think that's something that we can look at to continue our public education about what we're doing, a little bit of why we got to where we are now, but more importantly, what we're going to do in the next few years, so that they know where their rates are going. Because at the end of the day, as you summarized in your letter and in your reports, $900 million basically has been raised, not all finished building, but raised in the last 20 years. 1/3 of it we got from federal grants. The rest has come from rates, which is why the rates today are higher than they were 20 years ago. And we still have work to do on the distribution side. And that's where the rest of the rate adjustments in the coming years are going to go. And you know, ratepayers, I mean, nobody likes rate adjustments, but we need to share with them where it's going and what it's going to do to improve their service. You know, and so these are all pieces of the puzzle, pieces of the elephant falling
we're doing good.
falling in the.
We're moving forward.
We wish we could do them faster, but,
Yeah,
we're
course.
doing them as fast as money will allow. But great to see, we're seeing many more projects from Miguel saying distribution, sewer, distribution, water.
Yeah, collection and
In an area
distribution,
we've
yeah.
heard about for 20 years saying, ugh, how do we tackle it? And this is all the piece of it. And so Miguel and Chris will focus too on just telling our ratepayers these stories about where their money is going and how we've leveraged federal funding and what we expect to do in the coming years. Because it takes that long to tackle. It's when we're by 2035, it's something like 1.3 billion-ish is what we're going to put into the system. And how do you take 1.3 billion out of this community? You got to spread it out because they just can't pay it any faster. And that's essentially what we're doing. And then God bless EPA and God bless our management team for being able to get the feds to throw in quite a bit of money, to make it happen. And now the governor's using federal funds to help us with projects. So, all of these are good, collaborative, hardworking efforts of our team to deliver for our ratepayers and give them value for their money, right? Because it's tough on them too. But very encouraged by the progress and familiar names. Finally, there's a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of a solution being implemented, money being available, and the sacrifices of the ratepayers producing outcomes for them, that their money's being put to good use.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. No other comments, questions? Miguel, let's go to the next one.
Okay, Mr. Chair. The next and final issue for decision on the agenda is Resolution 07, FY 2023. This is another distribution system project, but also related to the court order tank projects. This is the pressure zone realignment construction phase 1. We are at the tail end of this project. It has been necessary and urgent because of its interrelation with the court ordered tank projects. Some of the work on this project was required in order for us to take, for example, the Kaiser Reservoir offline and make those assessments and repairs, which have recently been completed. However, there is some additional work that needs to be done, and that's the subject of this resolution. So the focus of the project is to involve pressure reducing valves and flow meters at various sites island-wide. In addition to being able to control the pressures and reduce water loss, we are also monitoring the amount of water that flows between the points in the distribution to assist us with our district metered areas. In order to bypass reservoirs, we've also needed to put in some pressure reducing control valves and take these reservoirs offline for maintenance and cleaning, assessment, and repairs, as I've mentioned. Additional funding, however, is necessary to complete work at several of the sites, including the Carnation and Jackson site, for additional material because of differing site conditions discovered during the work, and additional repairs, road repair requirements imposed by the Department of Public Works for an existing pressure reducing valve station. Wasengsong, we had to relocate some pressure reducing valves because of alignment issues with Public Works. Clara Street, we've had some relocation of the PRV and flow meter vault required by DPW for security fence placement. On the Kaiser site, there were different site conditions that required the revision of some of the SCADA equipment that is necessary, and abandonment of the existing PRV vault and line capping that would require additional work as well. And then some minor adjustments on some of the other sites, including Maimai, Teral, Okuru, and installation of vault vents at several locations. So all of this is expected to be taken care of in 2 change orders. The first, change order number 3, has already been negotiated at $765,000. We are currently in negotiations for the work that we've requested in change order number 4, but we anticipate that we will be able to complete all of this work in an amount not to exceed $350,000. So maximum total anticipated change order for amounts for both is 1.1 million. We have a remaining authorized contingency of 268,000. So we're requesting an additional 847,000 to complete this work by the end of March in 2023. Again, this is just phase one of the PRZ construction project. There will be a phase two construction project that will be put out to bid in the near future. Source of funding that we anticipate using includes US EPA grants and 3 bond line items for water master meter program, and then PRV rehabilitation and replacement. So we do anticipate using a combination of those funds for this project.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? More good work? Only bad part, we need money.
Those are all distribution, right? All 3 of these projects relate to
Yes,
essentially
water.
distribution, water pressure.
Yeah, and water pressure. And monitoring where the water is going in our system so we know better. Okay, we got what's next. What else?
No other resolutions. We can move to a quick summary of the
Your report.
management report.
Sure.
So for, as of November 9th, for workforce availability, we are 96% healthy, 2% sick, not COVID related. We had 1 COVID-19 quarantine and 5 personnel on military leave and 2 on long-term disability. So we're doing pretty well. I think this past week, these numbers are as of November 9th, but this past week I think we're at 0. So everybody's healthy and back to work. Moving on to the operations on the production side. For the month of October, deep wells produced about 35 million gallons a day on average for the month. With 91 wells active, you'll note the number of wells that we have with grounded motors is higher than I would like it to be. So we have a lot of work to do there in replacing some of the wells, pumps and motors. Averaged 2 million gallons a day, as is normal, and Tumon Maui about 1 million gallons a day. We had a 38.5 on average, 38.5 million gallons a day total production on average for the month of October.
Miguel, on the wells, the number of wells that are down higher than you would all like, is it a recent series of failures that has increased it? And
Yeah.
you can attribute to, I don't know if the surge is the right word, but just the increase that we're seeing on down wells. And
So the issues that I think that we're having with power have exacerbated the problem. We have been pretty good about keeping the required inventory. So the numbers, the high numbers reflect both kind of an increase in burnouts, but also we're a little hindered in doing timely replacements as we currently our crane is down, and so we're relying on availability of rental cranes or GPA's assistance for their crane when they're not using it. So I think both of those factors have contributed to this number being higher than I would like it to be.
what's the ETA on the crane
We're waiting on the
supply chain?
supply chain. The parts, as I understand, are not yet with the vendor.
Have you yelled at your sister about the LEAC and the frequent outages in the areas where we serve our motors are getting burnt out? And is it concentrated because you mentioned Santa Rita's had some challenges with, and power outages has affected those projects. Now you're seeing wells down. You mentioned electrical challenges, right? Shortages. Is
No,
it
I mean, this
more than usual? Or
This is
sort of-
something that we've been anticipating and managing. It has increased our costs in terms of the well replacements and also having to replace the inventory as we use these pumps and motors, having to replace those.
But do we know why the outages are occurring? So are they occurring more
So
frequently? Or?
it's not so much that it's an outage or an extended outage. It's those intermittent lapses that cause the pumps to stop suddenly, and those instances create enormous loads on the pumps that are, 450, 500 feet down, and not much water pressing down on the bearings when you suddenly stop it and it all comes slamming down. That has a detrimental effect to the performance of the pump and motor, and it may not surface right away. It may slowly wear down and fail over time, but those occurrences increase the likelihood of failure on these pumps and motors, and that's why we're seeing this. But the situation that we're in, we've been managing it. It's just it's kind of coming to a head, and there's been an increase. Maybe you're only noticing the number now because I pointed it out, but it is higher than my comfort level. We want to have more wells on standby. We don't necessarily need any more in production, but it takes away our cushion when we have less on standby and a lot of more of them waiting for motor replacements.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds like you're doing everything you can with the circumstances that present themselves. But and correct me if I'm wrong. You alluded to power creating some challenges, and for a long time we've had a pretty constant availability of wells, right? And then now we have an increase that's, to me, I would say unusual. Not what you've been managing for a number of years. Now there's, I don't know if surge is the right word, but an increase in the number of pump wells not available due to pump challenges. And I just want to make sure that, which I'm assuming you're doing because you've done it in the past, that you're talking to GPA and saying, hey, I'm having failures of electricity over here that's causing me headaches on the water side, and is GPA aware, and are they remedying the circumstances, or is it not fair to necessarily blame GPA?
I think it's not necessarily fair to and I am certainly not casting blame on GPA. I'm pointing out that we do have issues. I don't think that this is anything that has not been discussed before. So the critical thing here, I think, is just to get the new plant up and running, restore the reliability that they need to the production and the distribution, their distribution system, which will in turn help us.
So the Ukadu plant actually plays a big role in steadying the quality of the power?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so that is there.
This is the interpretation of a mechanical engineer working for the water utility about the power companies. So take that with a grain of salt. I know
Well, you're a
Mr.
good customer of the power
Benevienti
company, so talk to that brother of yours and say, hey.
he is also doing the best he can given his circumstances. So this is us managing our issues, and I'm informing the board of where they are. I will say that, us having a crane issue that delays maintenance work like this, this is not the first time this has happened to us. We've been better about making sure that gets addressed. We have some contingencies in place, the rentals, but as you're aware, there's a lot of construction activity and a lot of equipment is being used, so we don't have the same flexibility that we used to. So I will be looking with the management team to try and provide some additional procurement alternatives for equipment rental, and I may also be approaching the board for a purchase,
Get another crane,
an additional purchase.
yeah. Get what you need. You're fixing a lot, so.
Yeah.
What do cranes cost these days? A couple million? 3 million?
Depends on the size of the crane.
The one you're thinking about?
I haven't taken it that far yet, but I anticipate it'll be between 1 and 2 million. They're not cheap. By the same token, I think we should, when we do make the purchase, we should procure equipment that will be useful to both utilities. So we may mimic some
There you go.
of the size of GPAs, just so that there's
Maybe
redundancy.
they can pay for half of it.
I wouldn't ask that necessarily yet.
You can ask. We'll let you ask. We might say yes.
Moving on to wrap out the production, this is just the chart showing the production at 2 Mile Maui well. You can see the 2 dips. These are usually associated with power issues when the things trip and that station loses production for a short while crews restore it. Moving on to distribution, we've seen some improvement in this over time. Our percent operability at all of our water distribution pump stations is at nearly 97%. Number has been steadily increasing and then maintaining, so we're happy about that. However, you can take a look at the tank levels, and at the end of October, you see some concerning events. This, again, is in relation to some of the main breaks that we've been having. And the southern reservoir levels are also down because we have several tanks currently offline for repairs, which compounds the situation. So at the end of October, we're down to between 20 and 25% average capacity on the reservoirs in both north and south. And so this is something that we need to rebound from. We, as the commissioners are aware, I sent a text this morning regarding some limitations we're having at producing out of Ugam, so that is also compounding the problem. We hope to get that resolved today. Moving on to wastewater collections. Wastewater pump station operability has been increasing. We're still not where we want to be yet, but we're at about 92% operability across all pump stations island-wide. CCTV. And cleaning, we exceeded our targets for the month of October, so we're on track for making our annual targets for the year. We did 9.96 miles, so about 4 point some miles above our target of 5.2. On wastewater treatment, our sludge disposal this month was about 209,000 pounds at a cost of about $18,000. So maintaining a very low compared to historical averages sludge disposal rate at this point, and that's reflective of the advanced secondary treatment at several of our plants. Flows averaged 14.7 million gallons a day total across all of the 5 treatment plants. Northern, again, 4.7. That's not being affected too much by the rainy weather. You can see, however, that Agate Santa Rita daily flows are up 3.09, and compared to, you could track the chart across the months through the drier seasons, you can see how low that flow gets. But during the rainy season, we have a lot of I&I in the south that we still need to correct. So some of the wastewater collection system work that we will need to do in the future. Moving on to asset management. For the month through October, we have corrective maintenance to preventive maintenance ratio of 27% for corrective and 73% for preventive. In terms of work order completion, out of all the preventive maintenance, we've completed 84% of the work orders, and for corrective maintenance, 92% of the work orders, and that those do include leak repairs. For the corrective maintenance, the ratio between leak repair CM work orders and equipment CM work orders, it's 54% to 46%, with the completion rates being 97% for leak work orders and 92% for equipment work orders. For One Guam, just a few items to note here on the work that we're doing with our DoD partners on the NGLA deep observation wells. We have the Northwest Field well has been installed, although the contractor's doing some regrading. With the heavy rains, we've noticed that there's some ponding around the wellhead, and so the regrading and elevation of the concrete pads, that's being conducted to alleviate that issue. In South Finnegayan, that well has pretty much been completed. Anderson Air Force Base, that well is still being drilled, although we do anticipate it will be completed by the end of November. And in Jigo, the well there has been drilled, although we encountered some difficulty getting to full design depth. and the contractor could not proceed. We directed him to stop. We didn't want to waste any more money on that site. However, he did get so far as to provide a potential production well. We evaluated converting that to a production well, and it actually looked really good. However, because of the timing of the grant funds, we would not be able to complete it, and there was a whole lot more permitting that would be required if we were to try to convert that to a production well and put in another monitoring well to the design depth. WERI and USGS did indicate that although it didn't go to complete design depth, it still would be useful, so we are changing the approach there and just finishing it as a shallow observation well, not a deep observation well. And it will be completed by December, so we should be able to get everything done in accordance with the grant deadlines by the end of December. There are some other issues still relating to easements. I think Teresa's still working on trying to complete that for DOD. We do have some pending requests with DOD on additional meter work for Anderson's wastewater system. And then the Navy did advise us that they're conducting a new pilot project for treatment technology for PFAS, which we identified and talked to them about. We're looking at it ourselves, and so we're trying to see if we can work jointly on trying to avail of that technology to address what we know is coming down the road in terms of water treatment requirements from the federal EPA. So that's about it for the one Guam. Moving on to court order. No change in the status. We are still working to complete the remaining reservoir projects as we've discussed already. We did have several SSO events through November 1st. You can see those listed here. I think we had 10 SSO events, and these continue to be a problem for us, which is the reason why we are going to be focusing on wastewater collection system work with the next enforcement action from EPA. Not much movement on the remaining land acquisition issues. These are affecting both our tanks and deep wells, and of course the Aspen Springs, which is we're still waiting on National Park Service to complete their required work so that we can get an easement or lease access to complete the Aspen Springs renovation project. Finally, for my end, we are still maintaining daily completion of reported leaks. We are still below 20 at the end of any given day, so the crews are doing well in responding to and keeping up with reported leaks in the distribution system, although they have been struggling with main breaks, as Commissioner Sanchez mentioned earlier. Do you want to go through your accounts receivable?
Month of October, the active residential customer accounts receivable due greater than 60 days ticked up a little bit, but it's still holding steady below pre-COVID levels, right around $1 million. For the commercial accounts, sorry. Same as the previous month. It is up a little bit, but hovering right below the $200,000 mark for commercial accounts receivable due greater than 60 days. That's it.
Finance. Thank you, Chris.
Sorry.
Good morning. So this is a snapshot of our financial indicators. we ended the month with the 1.25 debt service coverage. We did need to move about 1.3 million from our rate stabilization fund to ensure that we met the indenture requirements. With the funding from the governor's office, the ARPA funding of 12.4 million, it's anticipated that we might be able to put some money back into the rate stabilization fund as we use the ARPA funds to help us with our O&M. Our days cash was up to 299, and our collection ratio was 100% for month to date and year to date. We did see a drop in our days billed, which is reflective in our drop in demand for water and wastewater. Although our demand for October 22 was lower than last year's, our revenue has been up, is up because of the rate increase. So while we saw about a 6% drop in demand, water demand, we saw about an 8% increase in our revenues, and a large part of that is due to the shifting, the increase in our commercial wastewater. So we're seeing that start to rebound, but not to the levels pre-COVID.
But, and Tolling, so what's causing the drop in overall demand year to year?
So part of it, I think, is as, folks went back to work, you'll see the residential demand go down and the commercial go up. I think also, as a result of all of the inflationary pressures, people are looking for ways to conserve, saving their money for the power bill.
Yeah. And the money the governor gave us, we're going to replenish our reimbursement fund, our rate stabilization fund, versus applying it to
No,
the rate?
we'll be using it to fund our O&M. We're not allowed to use those funds to push into a reserve. So if we do push money into the reserve, it'll be out of our revenues.
From our revenue stream.
Oh, so, but the governor's money allows us to replace.
It'll be
we
used for
would
O&M,
otherwise
yeah.
use. So the governor's money is going to be used for,
It's to offset the reduction in rates that we were hoping to get. So instead of the 10%, we only got 5.5. So the governor's money is going to be used to mitigate that reduction.
and that protects coverage, gives you
Right.
cash that you're not getting from the rate relief, so.
That they can give to O&M.
Yeah, so unlike when GPA gets money for the LEAC, right, where you can actually affect the rate, the governor's assistance is replacing revenue that we hoped we would have gotten through rates, but it gives us the cash you need to maintain ops, yeah? So it's not an opportunity for direct rate relief. It's
No.
actually,
No.
and I guess the PUC still continues to keep us on a tight tether when it comes to rate adjustments. Our next potential rate adjustment is a year from now.
Yeah,
Right.
another 5.5.
Okay,
And then
but that was granted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know what the next
Yes, we know what the
2
next
years
one-
are like.
Well,
right?
there'll be a true up, but,
Right.
Yeah,
But the
hopefully
mag-
that's the floor.
Yeah. But even with the true up, right, is the PUC order saying that if some magical reason our revenues surge by 5% and we true up and we're ahead of projections, we wouldn't be granted next year's rate adjustment? Right,
No.
It's a conditional rate adjustment, or I thought you got it?
We would need to justify the rate increase. And I think in the past, the PUC has granted an increase or a decrease. It depends on where we.
Using that phrase, subject to true up,
Right.
right? So-
Right.
So next year's adjustment is still subject to true up. It may or may not occur. Meanwhile, the governor's money, at least for this fiscal year, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that's taking revenues that we hoped we would have gotten from rates, right?
Right.
And giving you
Replacement,
cash.
yeah.
And that'll help you with ops, it helps you with coverage, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So based on the projections that we discussed with the PUC, even with the governor's ARPA funding infusion and the projected approved target rate increase for the next fiscal year, based on what we projected, we would still be short to meet
still
that
need-
service coverage for that year. So when we go for the true-up,
That's one of the things you'll raise. Yeah.
we've already indicated we're likely going to come back here and ask for more, because based on the projections, we don't see this allowing us to meet that service coverage in light of the increased debt service that went into effect this year.
This year.
So the true-up may indicate an even greater need for rate relief than what was
Above the 5.5.
tentatively approved,
Yeah.
subject to true-up at the last session. Okay, all right, well, that's.
And
what the
we
true-ups
gave
are
them an estimate of what that is, and so I think the ordering provisions require us to keep them up to date on that as we move forward.
for. Okay,
Go
that's what- that's what the true-ups are for. Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, and then moving on to the next slide, this is just a chart showing revenues and expenses and net income. Moving on, this is pictorial showing our financial statements from FY18 to 22. I will say that, compared to FY18, our FY22 expenditures are lower, except for power, which substantially went up, and salaries and benefits. And with regard to salaries and benefits, it's really about the benefits. So our salaries are actually either level or lower compared to the prior years, but it's our benefits that have been
Insurance, retirement.
putting a strain, yeah. Okay, and then moving on to the next slide, this is just showing our water demand and revenue for our different customer classes. And so, as you might notice, the piece of the pie coming from our our residential customers is getting smaller compared to as we're rebounding on our commercial side. And then the next slide is just showing wastewater. So because of the way we bill for our residential customers, the revenue picture is slightly different than the demand.
Commercial.
Right. And then this is just over the year,
3-year period.
showing the water demand and wastewater flows. So, the wastewater pretty much follows what the water demand is over the last 3 years.
Pretty steady demand.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Right.
Over the last 3 years.
And then the next slide, where are we? This shows our water demand and our wastewater flow against our revenues. So, like I said, in October, we saw us uptick, I think, partially due to our. And then this is just another way to look at it. This is the blue is our revenues, the red is our collections, and then the line graphs are our collection ratios. Next slide is our AR aging. So we see this kind of weird blip in October, and that's because we recognize the billing to the governor for the ARPA funds. And so that really skewed the AR balances. So
Say that again? Why is ARPA funds considered receivables?
we were told in October that we would receive it, but we didn't receive it until November. So we recognized the receivables and the revenues, and then or the grants receivable, and then we did receive it this month, so next month it'll smooth out.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So the AR piece, you anticipated the governor's assistance, created that
Right.
as a...
Once they confirmed that we were going to get
And you created something called a grants receivable. That's a new one, but maybe it's not new. It's the first time I've heard, but that's good. So, and then when it didn't come in, it appears higher, but now that, and because you booked it for the, on the revenue side, the income
Right.
side for the financials, right? But then when it came in, now your ARs went down. Okay, I get it.
Okay, and then the slide on the left is showing all of the customers, and the slide on the right just takes out the inactives. So you see the, the current receivables higher and the over 120 days lower. And the next slide shows, so one of the things that we need to provide to the PEC as part of the order is they were very interested in the grants that we're getting. So this is a grant summary at 9:30, and so we're getting our grants from EPA, DOD, and DOI. So this shows the blue is the awarded amount.
EPA.
Sorry, the blue is the EPA, and then the first set of bars are awarded. The next set of bars are life to date, and then the last set of bars are year to date. What doesn't show on here is our encumbrances, our contracts.
And the red is DOD?
Right.
DOD portion.
So that will pretty much go away. I think we're going to be fully expended by this year.
This fiscal year.
Okay, and then the next slide is, you were talking about debt service as a percentage of revenues, and this just is kind of a pictorial of that. And so in 2018, about 25 cents on the dollar went to debt service, and then we're projected in 2023 to spend about 37 cents of our revenue. And then, you missed two slides, it wasn't on here? You skipped it? You want to go back to yeah, that one. This is, so one of the things that we provide to DAC is in our annual reporting is we provide the top 10 water and wastewater customers. So the blue part of the sunburst is all other customers. And so for water, you'll see that our largest customers are government and hotel. So the top three are DOE, GPA, and UOG. And then on the wastewater side, we see the Air Force and Navy having a part of the top three,
They're the
and then
number
DOE.
one.
Because they get their own water.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Gershwin, the fourth one on the wastewater, that's Guam Solid Waste.
I don't know if this is the right time, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
but there was an interesting article in the paper about the Solid Waste Authority's rate consultant. I think that's what he is. Was expressing concern that the rate we were charging solid waste, I'm not sure what the phrase he used, but it's obviously something they want us to look at it. They think they're in the wrong customer class. Or can you talk about that comment, or that discussion, and whether GSWA's talked to you, and how's that going?
GSWA sent me a letter. The letter contained a short report by a consulting firm which purported to illustrate that based on their wastewater characterization, the strength of the wastewater is not, should not be classified as commercial 3, I think, which is what it was originally set at. There's some history here. The original agreement was based also on the waste characterization study, I believe, and it was considered kind of an industrial discharge. It was negotiated with compliance and safety, our compliance and safety division, that we could accept the leachate at the commercial 3 rate, and it was accepted by the receiver at that time. So now, and this is specifically for ORDOT, there was an anticipated volume of leachate that would be discharged, and typically that's, to my understanding, highest at the beginning of a landfill closure, when as you seal the cell and you eliminate rainfall from running through the landfill, whatever is going to leach out is going to be highest in the beginning because there's nothing driving it once you put the cap on. And so you would see the volumes decrease over time. So I think their current consultant's report is saying, well, the wastewater strength is a lot weaker. But what I don't think is being discussed very much is part of the reason why it's weaker is because they're producing significantly more leachate than they anticipated. In fact, the number has not been going down. I believe the number has been going up, which indicates there's something wrong with
the cap.
the leachate collection system. They have incurred added expenses because they've been having to hire trucks to pump up the higher volume from their holding tanks and then
Take it.
discharge it uphill because their pump station can't keep up with the volume of leachate that's coming in. So, I received their letter. I asked Compliance and Safety, Mr. Kemp, to take a look at it in detail and provide me some feedback, which we're still doing. We have concerns about the report, but obviously I think the elephant in the room is the amount of volume. If you're going to dilute by adding stormwater, yes, the strength of your wastewater is going to change, but that can't be the basis for our decision on what we're charging. The basis for our decision on what we're charging was agreed to, if they figure that part out and stop the dilution, right, and then it goes back to what it was, then the wastewater characteristics will again change. I don't think it's fair for us to be going through this every time there's a change in their operations, right? So I think what we've agreed to is fair and should stand, but we're giving it proper consideration, and I've asked our compliance and safety team to take a look at it. I'm waiting for some feedback, and then I'll reply. But just on the face of it, it seems to me the bigger issue is resolve the volume issue, and that will be of greater impact than trying to put the onus on GWA to change the rate. And we don't have that authority to just
Change
the rate.
They'd have to petition.
If there was a basis for that, then it would have to go into like a cost of service analysis and go through the PUC if there was to be a special rate just for this, which there currently is not.
Yeah.
And we're charging them the most appropriate rate and the agreed to rate, I should add, based on the initial design and
Characteristics.
wastewater characterization. So conditions have changed, yes, but what is the basis for the change?
What's the basis?
It's all on their side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. I will put out a response. I can keep the board.
Just keep on.
I've not
You're
had
not
the
ready
benefit
to-
of a public forum to expound our position on it, unlike their consultants. But
You just did, so, but that's good.
Yeah.
So there's always 99.99% of the time, there's always two sides to every story, right? So now you're sharing with us our side, and it makes sense to me. We're not going to just class hop for any customer that says, hey, I've changed the way I used to be when I started, and now move me to a different class. There's a process by which you could do that administratively, but they have to provide the evidence, and in sense, from what you're describing, your concern is it's artificially being diluted because their sealing system isn't sealing, and so you're getting all this
Or
water
something's
flow
happening.
and it's diluting the leachate, and I agree with you, they have an obligation to fix that side of their equation, and if they do, how will that affect the quality of the leachate, the composition of the leachate? And if indeed your concern is there may be an artificial impact on the leachate that suggests that maybe they should move to a different class, but it's only because of something that is artificial to. It shouldn't be happening in their operation. It shouldn't be leak or not. The whole idea of the closure eventually was so we stop leaking.
yeah, and it should be noted that all of our regulations and our rules prohibit the discharge of stormwater into our sewer system.
Yep.
For
they're
obvious
taking-
capacity.
they're taking
You could even
stormwater?
do that. You could just say, hey, you're dumping stormwater into our system, deal with it yourself, and that's not, and you're not doing that, right?
No, but I think there's been, there's an opportunity here for things to be worked out. this initial approach doesn't seem to me to be that opportunity. So, you know,
You'll
I'd like to
respond.
work with them, but
Sure.
I want to get my response right before we,
So you're aware of it, you know,
Yes.
you're outlining to us the facts as you understand them, your approach as you're going to deal with that in light of your understanding of the situation. And, yeah, we'll just
Okay.
see how it's on your list of things to do.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it?
I hope so.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? Move, second? Okay, we're adjourned.